Hi, Jana.
Good evening.
How are you?
Oh, not bad, thank you. I have another
Okay.
student today.
He's cute. He looks like Grumpy Cat. You know that
She
famous
is.
cat?
She is
It's cute.
the grumpiest
Um,
cat ever.
I I have an issue today, and so normally I do this on Google Classroom, or sorry, I do this on Google Slides, but I'm using an old PowerPoint for reasons that I will explain in a minute. Hi to whoever the person number 3 is. Hi, Tim. Um, I'm using a different PowerPoint, and because of that PowerPoint, I'm not sure how this is going to work. So hold on, let me think about this. This is embarrassing. You know, I'll tell you, I have no assumptions. I know that application window, your entire screen. I might have to share it this way. Put it up on my entire screen, and then I won't be able to look at people. Stop, hold on, hide. And then where is this? Do you see my PowerPoint?
I just see your screen. Oh, yes, yes,
It says project-based learning?
yes. I see it.
Okay. Okay, that's good. So I had so many things to get to this weekend, of which I did not. And so because of that, I'm using a slide from last year, and I changed the format of the lecture for this year. So it's totally different. So I apologize to everyone, that it's not kind of our typical format, and I apologize that I don't have the assignments up yet, but I will very soon. So so Jana and Tim, if you notice anything that pops up, if there's any questions, if somebody else comes in, I'm going to have to ask you guys to let me know, because anyhow, I'm going to start going.
Okay.
And we're going to talk today about project-based learning. Tim, were you going to tell me something? No? Okay, so we're talking today about project-based learning. And so this is kind of a passion of mine. So, and it goes along, believe it or not, with ESL, simply because it's best to learn language in context. It's always best to learn language in context. It has advantages over the traditional way people have taught ESL, which is, lists of words, memorization, rote grammar rules, and all of that stuff. It's always better to learn something, and in the way that it's used, you see an example and you say, why does that work that way? And then from there you apply it. Okay. So how do I move to the next slide now? Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay. So because we're only 2 here, I'm actually going to ask you guys to answer this question. And obviously we cannot be sitting with a group. And like I told you, this is from last year. So, but think about for a minute what the most interesting activity was in school, the best thing you ever studied, and what made this thing fun and exciting for you. And I'm going to tell you 2 of mine. Okay. So the first one that I remember explicitly was a university assignment. And in that university assignment, we were given the question, the way the teacher set up the professor set up the assignment, each of us had to go and create a journal. So once a day, we had to go find some random fact in the community and write that fact down, or something that we saw, just random notes. And then once we did that, the person who made the random notes, their name got ripped from the journal, and then we got some other person's journal that we had to analyze. And it was kind of the first piece of kind of research I had ever done. So I remember mine distinctly. And one of the things that was in my assignment, the only part of it I remember from the students' part, was him talking about there was a man who wanted to get on a bus, but he said he didn't have enough money to do so. No, that was the one thing I remember. So those were the kinds of observations we're supposed to make. Anyhow, with that, at the end of it, when we were doing the analysis of that project, I had to take this person's journal and write observations. And we had lots of choices about how we wanted to go about doing that. But I had decided that I wanted to write mine from the perspective of I found this journal 200 years in the future, 300 years in the future. I can't remember. So I wrote through all of the observations and I analyzed them and I described about the people of the times. And I remember at the end of that assignment, I made some comments about the fact that since I was on this archaeological dig and I found this journal, there were other things I found about these peoples besides this particular notebook and translation of things. I also found these little turtles that were everywhere and they had kind of eye masks on and different weapons. I was describing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which were big at the time. That I'm giving you my age. But these turtles, I think that they were the gods of these people. So I made like this fantastic joke about at the end of the project. So that was my most interesting activity that I did at school, and I loved it. And the part I think that I enjoyed most was it kind of mirrored something that I was eventually going to grow up and do because I became a researcher. It was kind of my first foray into research. And I also appreciated that when I did the analysis, I could do the analysis in a way that was fun and I was able to put jokes into it. So Jana or Tim, and anybody else who's there, because I can't see that screen right now, I'm wondering if anybody else, if one of you can tell me what the best thing you ever studied at school was.
I really enjoyed in high school. I was in jazz class, and one of the projects was for us throughout the term, each one of us to, as part of doing arrangements, listening to all different types of jazz in our combo, and picking a song that wouldn't normally, maybe it was like a big band song, so like, full orchestra type jazz song, but it couldn't be played by our combo of say like 4 or 5, 6 musicians, but together with the people playing different instruments in your combo, finding a way to arrange the song to where it would be something that we could play. I found that was probably the funnest thing that I ever did in grade school anyways.
So I just want to be sure I understand. So you took an actual piece of music and then you modified that piece of music to do something that was based on your abilities. Am I correct?
Based on our abilities and the abilities of all of the different the abilities of the combo. So like we would only have like a bassist, a drummer, say someone playing flute, a baritone, a bari sax, and like let's say that was it. Well, you can't play, say,
an orchestra piece.
Or even a lot of the different jazz pieces that are out there, you're missing like keys, for example, or whatever, but we would need to arrange it in a way to be like, that's one of our favorite songs, let's do it. So everyone in the band got to pick one song. And so I think it was a combo if we had 5 people. And so we picked 5 songs, each one of us picked a song for that term, but we all had to work collaboratively to arrange the piece to where our combo could play it.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so a key element in that is that it was group work, which normally most people passionately hate. Am I correct?
I don't like, I thrive in it, so I don't know.
Well, as a general rule, if we were setting this up and we were doing groups of things, most people would rather not. They wouldn't rather work independently. Okay, no, great. Jana, how about you?
I forgot to unmute myself as usual.
That's okay.
Yeah, so I was recollecting about my most fun school experience, and I thought about the experience I had at primary school with our class teacher, who was fond of nature studies, and she always called her lessons like the lessons of enjoying the nature. So she used to take us outside and called our class like the ecological patrol. So we used to clean the nature. I mean, where we were in the park, or was it just in a forest? So we cleaned that area, and after that, we could enjoy some snack. And she taught us some words that we could use to describe what we saw around us. And with her help, I learned the majority of epithets that I used later in my essays and in other written works. So that was helpful, and I still remember those lessons.
Okay. I don't have the list of people here. Is there anybody else in our group here today besides you two? And if there's a third person, would they like to speak? Oh, there's a whole pile of them. Okay.
Well, I don't it wasn't a lot of in-school activity. It was a field trip that we did. Does that count?
Sure.
Well, in junior high, I went to Drumheller with my class, and we actually got to sleep there inside the museum, and that was really, really cool. And while we were at the museum, we had we weren't just playing around, we had reports and stuff we had to do, but it made the report so much more interesting being at the museum and just being able to interact with the different dinosaur bones and what we had to write a report on. So
fantastic. And so this report that you had to do, did you do it individually? Did you do it with a group of people? Do you remember what it was about? Do you remember the conclusion?
Well, it was about different dinosaurs. I can't remember. I remember working in a group, but I don't remember if it was an actual group project or just working in a group in on our individual assignments. I don't quite remember that much.
So before you went, was there a so the field trip, was it kind of the end thing that you got to do, or was the thing that kicked off the report?
The end. It was the end of kind of
so you'd done a whole bunch of work leading up to that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Is there anybody else who wants to share?
I can share.
Sure, I'd love to hear it.
All right. Sorry, my connection's a little unstable if I cut off.
That's okay, so am I, and I'm not talking about my connection. No, I'm just kidding. I'm perfectly stable. I'm just joking. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Actually, two things came to mind, but the first one was kind of similar to what Jessica just shared. So in junior high, we did a field trip, which was a river watch. And in that, we got to take samples from the North Saskatchewan and just analyze them and different levels of, I don't remember exactly, but bacteria and other organisms in the water. And then we also got to go to the sanitation facility and see all the different pools and how they cleaned the sewer water, I guess, and sent it back into the North Saskatchewan. And that was a really interesting activity from my memory.
Well, it sounds fantastic. Sounds like it would be a great thing to do. And so, okay, so if we look at all of these things that we all enjoyed and the things that we're like our best memories from school, they have commonalities, right? And so, um, so some of the commonalities that are in this is that, so going to a dinosaur museum, doing a report on dinosaurs, you're actually doing something that's real life related to work, right? There's people who are working in that museum, paleontologists, and you're sitting along paleontologists, and you're not actually a paleontologist, but you're doing something along the lines of something that you could do one day, right? Then the same thing with the music piece. If you're doing the piece in music, you're actually out exploring music, transposing music into different kind of arrangements. Those are real life tasks. Being out in the forest, taking responsibility for nature and keeping your environment clean. Can you think of anything more important than that for our world? Like, there's so many people who are not participating in that, and hence we have all of the environmental problems that we have. On a side note, I hope you guys heard about that new coral reef they found in Australia. How fantastic was that? Higher than the Eiffel Tower. First time they found one that big in over 150 years. So hopefully there's good things still going to come to our planet. So a lot of these things, they also are things that happened and developed over time, right? My project that I did, same thing with Tim, he mentioned his was a group piece that happened over the course of a semester. Jessica, I think, was talking about the dinosaurs, right? That had a lead up to that project and that kind of penultimate project that happened at the end. All of these things, you did a whole pile of things that were going to help you lead up to something interesting, right? So, yeah. So keep that thought and keep those thoughts in mind. So, if you are doing a project-based learning piece, one of the things that you have to realize is, well, you start off with a warm-up, and so when you do a warm-up, it helps you helps you stay on the topic. It makes people think about where you're going with this. Like, why would you try to morph something in the way that you're going to do it? What do you want to develop? What kind of vocabulary are you going to use? How are you going to think about things analytically? How are you going to move into what's coming next, right? So if we think about this, and we're thinking about this in terms of our lesson today, what is it that we are going to learn, right? Well, we're obviously not doing a project over the course of an hour, but we have to think about what is it that we want to learn. And so part of this is developing goal setting. And this is something we want to encourage students to do, because I don't know if you've noticed, but the way I set up assignments, I'm trying to look at things in a different way. I want you to be able to look at things metacognitively. So I'll ask you, why are we doing this in this class? It might sound like I'm begging for approval from you. Like, why did I design this way? I can see, I can appreciate that somebody might look at that and say, Trudy's asking us to break her up all the time. She must have no self-esteem. That's totally not what I'm doing. What I'm trying to get you to look at is, how are things dissected, right? And so if we're looking at that here in this class, what are we going to dissect? So if we think of this, every time you start off kind of a unit, you should be thinking about, what are we going to learn? And it's not the teacher who's telling you this in project-based learning. It's the students themselves who are trying to decide how they're going to take this and evolve evolve it and run with it for something that meets their own personal needs. And that learning is not going to be for a test. It's going to be something for you for life, right? Having the experience where you go down to the river and you're analyzing the water content, that's somebody's real life job. And it gives you an appreciation for the future, right? It gives you an appreciation that people have that kind of work. And you don't know about it from a passive kind of way. Like, I know people work in fire stations and they're firefighters. It's from like the grounds up and gives you a real understanding of that profession. And so here's kind of my goal. We're hopefully going to look at the important elements in a project-based unit plan and think about what's in a project-based unit plan. You will know by the end of this lecture, in case you don't already, what makes a good project. And you'll understand how project-based learning is part of curriculum design. And you'll create, well, we won't have time to do that, but that's going to be your assignment that I don't have posted up yet. You're going to learn how to kind of create a general project on your own, right? So if I look at all of those assignments, right, from all of you, they all do the same kind of thing, and they would all meet all of these things. So it's a real world problem or a real world application. In my case, people really are archaeologists who go back and look at old things and try to guess the meanings of those things. And sometimes they get those things wrong, right? But they're always looking for an analysis. The same thing with looking at the water content. How do you make sure that water is healthy, right? What do you measure? How are you looking at pH? Are you looking at microorganisms? Jean is about taking care of the environment, making sure that the vocabulary, that you're learning the vocabulary of our nature. That's something that's clearly missing. Most kids who are 10 years old could name 15 kinds of cars, but they probably couldn't name 15 kinds of flowers, right? These are all real world things that help us to do real world jobs. Again, all of these help us to answer a question. What is a healthy ecosystem? How do you arrange music when you only have a limited number of musicians? How do you take care of your environment? How do you analyze a piece of information? A lot of these projects are interdisciplinary, right? If you're looking at the dinosaur museum and you're doing a project that's there at the dinosaur museum, clearly, and you're staying there, clearly you're not spending all of the time listening to the paleontologists. You're writing a report, so you're using your language skills. I'm guessing that part of the report is like keeping some kind of journal, right? That's developing research skills. So all of these are a blending of multiple different disciplines. And again, these projects that we all talked about, they're all long-term. They didn't happen in one day, in one lesson. And for us, the important part to remember is long-term changes over age, right? Because what's long-term to you when you're 5 is not long-term to you when you're like 20. Like, your attention span can only last so long when you're 5, right? So, but all of the ones that we talked about, they were all things that happened over a period of learning, and that there was student choice and student self-direction. So all of us within those pieces, there was all something in them that made them interesting to us, and that was because it was something of our own choice, right? So Tim's in particular, where he was talking about music, they got to choose a piece of music that they liked and figured out how that they were going to adapt that piece of music. So not often in school do we give students choice. Do we say, you can do whatever you like, go fill your boots, just be successful at it, and here's how. So this, because it's rare, it's so powerful that students get that. So I have some following slides These are all from my Vietnamese school. So I don't know, I don't think I've talked about this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Have I told you guys that I'm a Vietnamese teacher?
I don't think so.
Okay, so my daughter is Vietnamese. She was internationally adopted from Vietnam. So no, I am not Vietnamese. So what happened, I wanted her to go to Vietnamese school, and they had nobody who could teach the little kids, because teaching little kids is an art form, and it's one everybody thinks they can. You can take care of one kid, but trying to figure out how to organize 20 of them is like it's a serious job. And so nobody really knew how to do that. So I started and I said, I'm prepared to help support the Vietnamese teacher. I would love to help her come up with some lessons and activities. And she said that was great. That would be really helpful. And then she never came back to the school. So then I inherited a Vietnamese class, even though I don't speak Vietnamese terribly well. So I've been part of it for a long time. And these are all actual kids doing activities or projects with me. And I want you to try and guess which ones are activities and which ones are projects. Okay. So the first here is that students had a snowman to label. You can see they've each made a snowman. And then the snowman has a hat, the snowman has mittens, the snowman has boots, the snowman has a scarf. So when they were doing this activity, they were all labeling their snowman and they were all labeling their winter clothes. The whole goal of the activity was so that students learned their winter clothing. So is this a project or an activity?
I think it's an activity.
Why do you think that, Jana?
So
You're
because it
right,
has
by
a
the way.
common
It's an
goal
activity.
for everyone to complete, and probably the teacher was using a kind of a sample to show students how to do that. So the creativity had like a boundaries, if I can say so.
Right. And you can see here clearly that all of the snowmen are alike, right? So there's very little freedom in this activity. The students still did it. They had great fun. They enjoyed it. It was a wonderful learning experience, but it was not a project. Okay. So here's the next one. The students, I gave them flyers for, just random shopping flyers like that you would have at Superstore. And and because the flyers are all in English, they had to create a grocery list. Okay. So whatever they thought was their proper grocery list, and they had to cut out their items. And then they made a cost for whatever those things were. Like this particular girl, she has dish soap on her grocery list, and she decided I can't read, it's too small, but let's say it's $4. So she would total she would give the price of each one of those items and then total the whole entire list. So is that a project or is that an activity?
I think it's a project because the outcomes for each student will be different in some way. So like the guidelines are the same, but the outcomes are different.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, and to build on what you just mentioned, the outcomes would be different. And if that's indicative of there being more freedom and choice for the students, and that's one of the, if not the main sort of defining characteristics of a project versus that of an activity, then I would say it's a project as well. I don't know.
Okay. Other thoughts? Okay, I don't want to pressure anybody but in my mind, this is still an activity. So it's definitely got far more freedom than the previous one, but there's other criteria. One of the criteria is that it's related to real world. This is definitely related to real world. Real world people go out and they make grocery lists and then they total how much that they're prepared to spend. That's a real life skill. But one of them is that one of the other items is that they have choice, and the students definitely had choice. They got to choose how long, what items they were putting on their list. There's choice involved. But it was happened in one afternoon, right? There was no long-term plan for this other than working on the list. So while it was fun and they also enjoyed it, and it's definitely moving much closer to project, in my mind, it's still an activity. A fun one, a valuable one, a great one, but not quite a project, right? It could be turned into a project. It could be part of a project, but as it was designed, it was more of an activity. If part of it was they had to examine healthy eating, and because of healthy eating, one of the things they had to do was to actually go and make a list, go out and purchase the things. After they purchased the things, create the healthy meal and then share the meal amongst their friends, then it would be much more related to project type thinking. Okay. So here on this work, you'll see samples of two students' work. And in the first picture, there is a game that kids play in Vietnam. And in the second picture, it's traditional Vietnamese clothes. So in the first picture, you see there's two kids with giant sticks. Those are pieces of bamboo. So Tim's wife is Filipina, correct?
That's right. And
pretty
she's here and she's saying that they also have that game.
They also have that game. So you take the two pieces of bamboo and the kids tap them together, move them apart, tap them, move them apart, tap them, move them apart. And another kid comes along and jumps in the middle of the people hitting the bamboo. And the goal is for the people who are moving the bamboo to whack the kid in the middle on the ankles. Terribly painful, a little bit cruel, but great fun, I guess, if you're a kid. So, so this is one, and the second is that's my daughter's work. So everybody should be going, "Oh, that's so cute." Okay, and that's right on. So you'll see here she has a conical hat and she has an ao dai, which is traditional Vietnamese clothes, and so each of the students in our school, I told you I belong to something called the International and Heritage Languages Association. So each of our schools in our organization takes student work and they compile all of the student work together, and then they produce a giant book. And each child who produces work gets to see their work in a physical printed book. So for this work, each student goes and they choose a traditional element. So one child chose this game with the slapping of the bamboo, and then in the other one was traditional clothes, and they have to write about what those things are in English and in Vietnamese, and then all of the pages together get compiled along with the Filipino school, along with the Chinese school, Ukrainian school, and they all get stuck together and they make a beautiful book that we pass out to students. So my question is this a project or an activity?
it seems like a project, but the actual work like one student would be doing is so little still.
So that's what I think too. This is moving more and more and more and more towards a project. But in my estimation, it's still an activity because the actual production of the book happens over a really long period of time. So there is a time commitment, but the kids only do one piece of that giant project. So there is a project, but that project really belongs to the adults. The work, the kids do an activity, and that activity becomes part of the adults project. So, but again, there's choice, long-term commitment, all kinds of learning that's happening, real life, because there are people who are real life publishers. It has multi-levels in it because there's cultural components, there's translation components, but overall, the kids do an activity which goes into an adults project. Okay, next slide. So here, here is a dance. So every year, the children at our school produce a performance for Lunar New Year. Lunar New Year, you guys would have heard it called Chinese New Year, which is offensive to other people who celebrate the same holiday who are not Chinese. Just a piece of cultural information for you. I personally could care less because I'm not Chinese, but many Vietnamese people get upset by the term Chinese New Year. So anyhow, in Lunar New Year, we always have a big celebration. And so the kids get invited to this celebration and they get asked to perform. So we gave the girl who's at the very back of the line in the blue flowery dress, she's a figure skater, and she had all of the kids, my daughter's the really tall one in pink, she had all of the kids get together. They chose a piece of Vietnamese music. They created a dance to go with this music. They took this dance and practiced it and performed it in front of a crowd of 250 people. So project or activity?
That's a project.
It's definitely a project. And so it's a real life thing. There was a real genuine purpose for doing this dance. It wasn't just because the adults decided you need to go do a dance. The kids had multiple steps that they had to do. It happened over time, and there was lots of learning involved in that. So they had to design the whole entire thing. They had to listen to the music. They had to have an understanding of the lyrics to the music, because you can't be singing about love and happiness and then, fall on the floor, right? Like, so there was lots of learning that happened at different stages. Okay. So I have some units, but I don't have them here in the slides. So I'll try and post those for you guys to look at later. But I meant in computer here, not my Lacklebish computer, but I'll have them posted sometime very soon. There's warm-up activities. So when you start the whole concept of a project, you always have to get students kind of enticed into the whole concept. And that's one of the pieces of the project that you're asking them to do. And so you can start off with a gallery walk. And so one of the things that you can do to just get students in the frame of mind of thinking about an activity. So if one of yours is PH about the ocean, right? You could have different pictures of different oceans, or different, PH of the river. You could have different photos of different rivers all across the world, right? So you could have 3 from Canada, 3 from Africa, 3 from Europe, and 3 from Latin America, right? You could have, and then you have the students walk around the room, look at those photos and try and judge, are those environments healthy? What is there that might not be there? How would you know to judge if that's a healthy riverbank or something, right? So just having people walk around the room, look at them, and then try from there, start to think, why would I need to know this, right? You can just do simple brainstorming with students. Have them write out everything they know about dinosaurs. Okay, we're going to go to Terrell. We've got this fantastic trip, but in order to go there, we have to prove that we need to learn something, right? So I don't want to teach you what all you already know. So tell me everything you know about dinosaurs. You can do fill in the blanks. To me, project-based learning is the best because we get to explore things on our own or whatever. I don't know if you've played this game before, and we obviously can't play it online. Do you know the game Four Corners? So for the game Four Corners, you would have students, you would mark in each corner, you would have a word, yes, no, maybe, or I don't know. And so then you could say, love is important for your mental health. And so if you think love is important for your mental health, you would run to yes. Or then if you thought maybe love is important to your mental health, you would go to maybe. Or whatever your answer is, like whatever the topic of your project is, you would kind of play that game to get people to form opinions and then realize maybe they don't have enough information to voice those opinions. Maybe they need to explore other options, right? You could just simply have students draw pictures and label to see what they know. Like if you're talking about microscopes, right? You're going to do a project on analysis of the riverbank. You could just label a microscope. Do students know how to do that? It gives you some information, gets them kind of excited, thinking about parts that they might not otherwise know. And then you can play fact or fiction. So often in school, we think we know facts, but then those things are completely untrue. Like for instance, I know I talk about it a lot, but like multiple intelligences are not true. They don't exist, right? Or at least not in the way people understand them. So you could say, some people have more musical intelligence than others, or, I don't know, you just pick up random things about a particular topic. You have people vote if they're true or not, and then it gives you a sense of what kind of knowledge people have. So these are all really great kind of assessments for learning, but at the same time you're doing the assessment for learning, you're getting your students revved up and thinking about, wow, I can't wait, I'm going to learn this. I just know that there's something interesting coming in this piece, right? Okay, so once you have got people interested in the topic, you have to have them figure out what it is that they want to learn. So sometimes, and you have to guide this in terms of helping them ask a question, because students will often ask questions that, let me think about how I want to phrase this. Students will often ask questions that have yes, no answers, for example. So, is the sun yellow? Now, the sun might look yellow from here. I don't know enough about science. Maybe if you visibly get close to the sun, it might not look yellow. It might be white light. So you might have that kind of question, right? But so what makes a question a good question that you need to investigate? And so it has to be appealing to students. So if the question is, how do I arrange music for a project that only has 6 musicians, but I have absolutely no interest in that project, it's not a good question. So the question has to be interesting. It has to be concise. So asking a question like, so if I were to consider the pH balance of the ocean, and I were wondering if I had this, if we had, or if I was looking at the pH balance of a river, and we knew that phosphates had increased plant growth, and that plant growth was exceeded to a normal standard, and that the roots were clogging the river, would it be a good idea if we were to introduce fish that might consider eating? So it's a rambly question, right? It's not easy to answer. You want questions that don't have an easy answer. So why is the sky blue? Spectral infraction, right? So we know why the sky is blue. So we want questions that are meaningful, right? And so if I can answer the question with a Google search, so if I type in why is the sky blue and I get an automatic generated response, then I don't learn anything, right? So I need the question to be something answerable. The question has to tap into students' interests and passions, like music and environmental growth and archaeology and research. The question doesn't sound like a test question. Is an important part about asking a good question. The question leads to more questions. So if my research project is, what is the meaning of love? And then the meaning of love is taking care of somebody. So what does it mean to take care of somebody? So the answer to that question automatically sparks other questions. There should be more than one answer to the question. So, for example, how many legs does a spider have? It's not a very pertinent question because there's only one answer. I don't think there's any spiders that have less than 8 legs as part of the definition of being a spider, right? So the topic is personal or local. So I'm not going to continue to read all of these because you can read them for yourselves. And I'll be quiet for 30 seconds while you do that. Okay, thanks, friends. So one of the things that when you do a research project in ESL, you're always thinking about the student's level. And again, this slide comes from another course, language developing course. So we're not looking at SEFR, but if we're thinking about benchmark levels, it's always good to think about where your students belong, because what your students can do at level 1 and the project they can do at level 1 should not be the same as level 5, right? So you have to be thinking about what are the language elements in this project that I need to teach my students so that they would be able to complete the project, okay? And then here, I'm just gonna skip these things. So up until this point, so we have kind of a general topic. We've gotten the students interested. We've had them think about what it is that they want to learn. We know we have this guiding idea of where we want them to go, what language level they are, right? So we've got the students' interest in the topic. We figured out how to guide them to a good question, and we figured out what their language proficiency is. Okay, so then we need to think about what that project is. So I have all of those answers, and then I'm thinking here, what kind of vocabulary do they need? What kind of grammar do they need? So if you are doing a project on dinosaurs, you clearly need to know all of the different terms about dinosaurs. You would need to know about the kinds of vocabulary that you would need for the feeding of dinosaurs, the different eras of dinosaurs, right? You'd be thinking about if you're doing science, how do you write a science report about water? You'd be writing it all in present tense. You would be using, the different kinds of microorganisms and all of that kind of stuff. So you think about the language that you need to teach in order for them to be able to do whatever project it is that you have decided for them. And so here, just think about this for an example. We have kids here who are playing a bingo game. Okay. What do they need to know in order to be able to play this bingo game?
The alphabet.
Well, so they would have to know the letters bingo. Yeah, you can't really see it very clearly in this picture. It's a Halloween bingo game. And so there's hats and pumpkins and monsters. And so they would definitely need to know the vocabulary. Is there anything else that they might need to know in order to play that game?
Maybe the general rules, how to do that.
Right? The general rules, exactly. They might not have, they would need to know language like, what did you just say? Or can you repeat that? So like there's all of those kinds of things that you can teach them how to play that game, right? So you're always thinking about, if I need them to do A, what are the sub skills they need to do in order to do A? Okay, and so there is, the assignment is going to be, but again, it's not up yet and it will be soon. I'll give you a template. I'll give you some projects that I have done for my Vietnamese school, and you're going to look at them and you're just going to come up with a general project that you think might be interesting for students to do. And again, I'm going to suggest when you do this that you take it, you can hand, again, because it's just going to be an assignment to turn in. You can do something quick and dirty just to get it off your hands. But I would recommend you take a few minutes and really think about something that would be useful, because if you do that, this is a great thing to be in your portfolio. So if you are a science teacher, like if you're a science major, ESL minor, think about a project you would do in science and just kind of get that outline for that, and so that you will have that for your teaching portfolio. It's going to be one of those things that help you get a job, right? So this is what we have for today. Are there any questions? I feel like I've talked so fast and so much.
When are we going to be handing in this project?
It's gonna be this week's assignment. So I'll be posting it tonight. I won't go to bed until it's done. It's not a major assignment. It's not worth, it's one of those things that you tick off that you've done it.
Okay, this is going to be a little more intensive than the agenda or menu or contract one, right?
Yeah, a contract agenda or menu would be something simple like, okay, you're learning about healthy food, so you can make a diagram of the food pyramid, or you can draw a picture of a balanced meal, or you can find a recipe of something that's healthy. That would be your contract one. You have to do two out of the three, right? That's a contract. But this is like, when you see the final template together, you'll kind of get an idea. This kind of design is something you would use probably for 5 or 6 weeks to try and get the idea of where you're going in a general topic.
Okay.
So you'll have to have a look at the samples, and then that will give you an idea for how you're going to do it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop